Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to Chat with the Author Live. My name is Michelle Fondin. I'm the author of 12 published books. Of course, I'm here on YouTube on my channel at Michelle Fondin Author. I want to welcome you here if you're joining me for this newer, note the word, newer format and newer live stream at this specific time at 6 p.m. on Tuesday evenings and Pacific. I don't know if I said that. I said specific, but not Pacific. So 6 p.m. Pacific time. So if you're joining me here and you are in and out, please do put something in the chat. Say hello. Say where you're from. Say how long you've been watching my channel, or if you're brand new to my channel, and I will definitely give you a shout out. And of course, throughout the live stream, you can ask any questions pertaining to one of my 12 published books. And it doesn't matter which book, which topic of those books on twin flames, the chakras, the 8 limbs of yoga, spirituality, spiritual awakening, romantic relationships, meditation, ascending into higher states of consciousness, whatever it happens to be, you can ask those questions. And if you're watching this on replay, hey, so good to see you here. And if you want to ask questions for a future live stream, if you're watching this on replay, please do put it in the comment section below and I'll try to address your question in a future live stream. So I am here every 2 weeks, more or less, if you will. And one of the reasons why I am doing this on Tuesday nights is just because I feel like it's easier for me to do it Tuesday evenings. I'm usually already doing a group meditation course before this. So there's that. And also I'll be doing it every 2 weeks, except for next week. I will be doing a live stream next week. And that's just because we have Christmas week and then New Year's coming up, which we will actually skip. And then we will take it over again. We will take it over again either on December 30th or then in January to do the live streams. So the format is pretty informal here. And I have some questions that are definitely commonly asked to me on my channel or in the comment section of a video, a specific video, or maybe even in a coaching session. So I have some questions here that I will answer. And if you're joining me, please do say, hey. I know it's really difficult in the beginning because YouTube doesn't necessarily recommend a live stream that is either infrequent or new to a time slot. So I'm just flying by the seat of my pants here. So it's like I'm talking to you out there, but really, it's almost like I'm talking to myself right now. So let's start with the first question. And this is about twin flames and about a spiritual awakening. So you can pick the category that this might fall into for you. So the question is, what does surrender really mean? Like, what does it really mean? It still feels very confusing. So I'll repeat that question one more time. What does surrender really mean? And it feels a little bit confusing. I would say, especially if this is about a twin flame journey or even maybe a spiritual journey. So I would say surrender is the opposite of control. When we think that we need to micromanage something or we think we need to have all the answers right now, that's the opposite of surrender. In other words, surrender is letting go and letting God, let go and let God. And what that really does indicate is this sense of relaxation into the process, whether you are on the twin flame awakening journey or a spiritual awakening journey. This is really about relaxing and releasing the need to control the process. Now, it could literally mean surrendering to a higher power. If you're referring to something like alcohol and addiction recovery, that would really mean surrendering it to a higher power, whether that higher power is your higher self, your higher spirit, God, source, whatever you want to call it, the universe. But surrender is definitely like, this is something that is beyond my control. It's something that I can't control. So I'm not even going to try to control it. Surrender does not mean I give up. It's the complete opposite of I give up. Surrender is like, this is too big for me right now, and I don't understand all of the pieces. It's really hard for me to see the bigger picture, because oftentimes we really can't see the bigger picture. We cannot see what truly lies ahead. And so surrender is really about, I'm giving this over to a higher power. I'm giving this over to the universe to handle the details of the process, because it's really hard for me to see the bigger picture. And it's causing me misery to try to control things, to try to micromanage things. And that is really the process of surrender. So I hope that you can understand that a little bit better. Okay, so let's go to the next one. And this is on chakra healing, energy healing. Maybe some of you are feeling depleted of energy since it's the end of the day, right? And here I am with a coffee. Yes, a coffee at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Normally I'm not drinking coffee at this time. It's just I had the coffee and I didn't drink it yet. So I'm going to take a sip of coffee. These last 2 days for me have been a very topsy-turvy days. I had to have one of my tires replaced, then another tire replaced, but it's not that. It was just the scheduling was off. It was the communication with Tesla that was a little bit off. So it's been very topsy-turvy, a lot of things happening. So I can understand this idea of energy depletion when you're really like, ah. So let's talk a little bit about energy depletion and how you can rectify that. So what does energy depletion actually mean? Because we think of energy as like, oh, I eat food, or I drink some coffee and I have some energy again, or I get some sleep, or I drink some water and I have some energy again. Yeah, that's part of it. Of course, that's part of it. But really what energy is about is moving with the flow of your life, right? So anytime we have resistance to the flow of our own life is when we feel depleted of our energy, or we're moving into somebody else's lane, right? We talked a lot in these past 2 weeks on my YouTube channel about codependency and codependent type relationships, maybe the last 3 weeks, but we've talked a lot about that on my channel. And when you're moving into somebody else's lane and trying to manage their energy or something, a problem that they happen to be dealing with, and you're kind of infused in that problem, then that is when we tend to get energy depletion, right? Because we're spending our energy on a problem that we can't necessarily resolve, that may not even be our problem to solve, but we're trying to help somebody else, or maybe overreach somebody else, and maybe worry about a problem that's not even our own, right? It could be a global problem. So really that is what depletion of energy really entails. It's more like we're fighting against the current. And for me, certainly I've been feeling depleted of energy in the last 2 days because of this whole scheduling thing with Tesla. My son's had another thing with work. And so it's been moving into these weird different energies that weren't really my energy, but having to make accommodations for different scheduling. And that's why I was feeling depleted. But I believe the fastest way to rebalance energy when you are feeling depleted, obviously, is to rest, right? We're going to go for the easy one first. But meditation is really the most obvious answer here. And meditation, by relinquishing the need to go against the grain, that's what you're doing when you're meditating, because you are slowing down thought. You're slowing down your breathing. You're slowing down momentum. And when you meditate, you're kind of recalibrating with universal flow. So as you let go and you release and relinquish control, even over your breath, right? Because often, even as you are learning meditation, a really simple way to learn meditation is breath observation. So it's not controlling the breath. Oftentimes, new meditators will want to control the breath. It's not about controlling the breath, but it's about releasing enough resistance to observe the patterns of breathing And the more you observe your patterns of breathing, you will notice that the breath slows down. And in meditation, even the breath will want to stop momentarily, which isn't shocking, right? When you're really relaxed, your breath will slow down. But when your breathing slows down and your activity slows down and you settle down into meditation, you start to sync up with universal flow. And that is what gives you energy, again, is by syncing up with universal flow rather than fighting against the flow. So that is how you can regain some of that energy that you may have lost. And yes, caffeine does it too, but we're talking about more natural and holistic ways of going about this. Okay, so let's go ahead with another question that I often get. And this is a relationship between ego and suffering. This is an interesting one. So I do talk about this in my Awaken Your Spirit playlist. And I do talk about the source of suffering in the 8 Limbs of Yoga for Modern Times. And I do talk about the source of ego and suffering in this book, Heal Yourself, A Return to Wholeness. If you're really interested in learning more about the awakening process and healing, I would say check this book out. But the question here is, what is the relationship between ego and suffering? So let's first grasp this concept of suffering. What is the concept of suffering? The concept of suffering to me would be the feeling of unease or the feeling of dis-ease, the feeling of dissatisfaction, the feeling of maybe depression, the feeling of anxiety, the feeling of not feeling joyful, the opposite of joy, right? And suffering is something that happens, again, when we conceive of things around us not being the way we want them to be, right? Because when you are accepting the present moment as it is, as it comes, no matter what happens, even if you need your tire replaced, and even if you need to pay $400 to get your tire replaced, just one. So even if that is the case, when you are living in the present moment and you are observing things as they are in the present moment and accepting things in the present moment, there is no suffering. There's absolutely no suffering. Because even in the worst case scenario, you are just rooted in your present moment and observing what is. Even if what is not the most ideal of circumstances. And so really the source of suffering is our expectation that things should be different, right? That is the source of suffering. It's something about this situation should be different, whether it's a pain in your toe or whether it is something in the global news, right? It's something should be different. And really that is the source of suffering. Now let's link the ego to this, the difference or the similarities between ego and suffering and their relationship together. Well, the ego is the personality part of us that is expressing itself as you in this life. And the ego is not bad. Although some spiritual philosophies demonize the ego, it is not bad. It is not shameful. It is not something to be stamped out or killed, as some people are wont to think with the word ego death. The ego is just the expression of who you are in this life, right? You need an ego to express yourself in this life because you are focused in this body, right? So you need this ego. The only thing is that the ego is the individual self, the individuated self that you are. And the ego tends to think it's separate from everything else and everyone else, right? So if you are here expressing yourself, you are a spiritual being first, right? You are spirit first. Then you incarnate into this body. As you incarnate into this body, you take on a personality, you take on an ego self, right? The I presence, which is the ego self. And so as you take on this I presence, the I presence believes that is completely separate from everything else and everyone else. And survival is one of the reasons for this. You need to be able to survive. Super important, right? If you're living in a human body. But the other reason is that the ego operates a lot out of fear because of that survival mode. And so since the ego lives a lot in fear based on this survival mode, then the ego tends to bring about suffering in the human form, right? Because the ego thinking it's the individual and thinking that it needs to accomplish all this stuff by itself and that everyone else as egos are kind of against it or maybe in direct competition with, then the ego is saying, hey, watch out for this person, watch out for this situation, watch out for this, get yours before someone else can. And so the ego creates a lot of fear and anxiety, which again brings about that suffering, right? So it's less about being rooted in the present moment when you are looking at things from the ego's perspective. It's more about how can I survive and how can I get what's mine? Because after all, I need to survive and I deserve this. And if I don't get what's mine, it means that somebody else has got it. And so that's really how the relationship between ego and suffering work. Now let's take the inverse of that, which is focusing on your spiritual self first, right? So if you focus on spirit, which is connected and expansive. So if the point of view is spiritual, your higher spiritual self, there is no disconnection. So if there is no disconnection, then there is no suffering, or you can minimize suffering, right? There is a reduction of suffering because in the spiritual realm, everything is connected. Even those things you conceive of as problems are really not problems, right? Because if everything is together, if everything is interconnected, then there is a spiritual solution to every problem, as Wayne Dyer so eloquently put it as a book title. So that is the relationship between ego and suffering. I hope that was helpful. All right. So if you are joining me now, I want to welcome you here. And if you're watching this on replay, join me next time. Actually, I will go live on December 16th at 6 p.m. Pacific, because then I'll be taking 2 weeks off for Christmas break and then coming back in January for the live streams. So yeah, do join me and put it in your calendar so you can ask questions. And if you are here, please do ask questions. All right, let's go to the next question that I get asked quite often. And this is based on my book, The Wheel of Healing with Ayurveda, which is actually a quite popular book at this time. I feel like a lot of people are expanding into learning more about natural health and natural healing. For those of you that are new to the concept of Ayurveda, Ayurveda is a mind-body medical system from India, mind-body-spirit medical system from India. It is around 5,000 years old, give or take. This was my first published book, and it's called The Wheel of Healing with Ayurveda, and an easy guide. I had to think about the subtitle, an easy guide to a healthy lifestyle. And I think a lot of people now are looking for more holistic solutions to their health as the world is getting sicker and sicker, right? We see that on a global scale. So I think people are looking for more holistic healing systems to be able to turn to instead of just getting bogged down with so many prescription pills, right? Because more than 2/3 of all Americans take at least 2 prescription drugs, at least. And then it kind of snowballs from there. So the question here is, what's one simple Ayurvedic habit that can transform your health? This question, although it may seem simple, is actually quite complicated. It's complex. So what I would actually say that instead of thinking of it as one simple Ayurvedic habit, I think it's really important that if you are interested in the mind, body, spirit system of Ayurveda, study the doshas, which are the Ayurvedic mind body types. And in my book, there is a dosha specific test so that you can assess what your Prakriti is, which is your nature, meaning your genetic blueprint, according to Ayurveda. So in the book, there is a test of that. And you can answer these questions yourself with pen and paper, or you could do it on your computer, and you will be able to pinpoint what your natural mind body type is. And I feel like if there's one thing to learn in Ayurveda is learn and understand your mind body type first, and learn everything you can about what those traits do mean, because everything in healing in Ayurveda is based on your Ayurvedic mind body type, like your natural state or the state of imbalance, which can look different. So I would say learn the doshas first. Definitely learn about Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And I do have playlists on my channel speaking about the Ayurvedic doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And I'm trying to speak too fast. That's what's happening here. And so, yeah, just learn first, and then you can expand upon that as well. So I am going to go to a next question, and then I'm going to be wrapping it up, unless if someone joins and asks a question. But I think this is a really good way to start and just show you the types of questions that you're able to ask here on this live stream that are really based on all the topics that I address on my YouTube channel and in my books. And so let's go to a writing question. I do get asked a lot of questions about writing. And again, if you're joining me now, please put your question in the chat box. And thank you for the thumbs up, whoever gave a thumbs up. Superb. So the question here is, what is your writing process like? And this is an interesting one to me because I have written 12 published books. So there is definitely a writing process. And I am currently writing my new book called Love Me Unconditionally, A Spiritual Guide to Self-Love. So that is my latest book that will come out in May of 2026. It will actually be coming out with a workbook as well to work through questions, prompts of self-love and getting to love yourself on a very deep level. And I've been addressing a lot of those topics actually in the past few weeks on my channel. So what is my writing process like? So typically, if I'm in the middle of writing a book, meaning I've started and the writing process is well underway, I typically write for about 2 hours, about 4 days a week in the beginning. So I'm not writing every single day. I need some days in between where I'm reflecting on the material, because the material for me does not necessarily come when I'm writing, although it does. It comes a lot when I'm in the shower, when I'm taking a run, when I'm doing other things, when I'm doing the dishes. So my writing process is usually writing for 2 hours, 4 days a week in the beginning. When in the beginning, I'm meaning like the first month that I'm writing a book, or maybe the first 2 months that I'm writing a book, I'll do that process where I pick 2 hours, 4 days a week. And so I'm writing for about 8 hours in a week. I write relatively fast. A lot of my work is channeled or downloaded, if you will. So in that 2 hours, I'm typically writing about 1,500 words, which if you've ever written anything, that's pretty quick. Okay, so that's how I do it. And then as I get closer to completing the work, I usually do write every day or 6 days a week. And sometimes I will chunk those times where I'm doing maybe 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the evening. Why do I do it that way? Because generally by that time I have a lot of momentum going. And so that's really the reason why I am in that type of writing process where I'm doing every day, almost every day, and sometimes a couple of times a day. What I've often done when I'm wanting to complete a book, and I did this with the Empowered Divine Feminine, I actually went away for a week. So I went to Kripalu, which is a yoga retreat center in Massachusetts. So when I finished The Empowered Divine Feminine, I probably had, I don't know, maybe like 10,000 words I needed to finish for that book. And so I went to Kripalu for a week and wrote my book there and finished my book at Kripalu. So that is the writing process, but that's only the beginning, because after there's the editing process. And of course, since I am self-publishing most of my books now, right now, I'm self-publishing, there's the formatting process, which is the formatting is the interior of the book, like making the book look pretty. And I didn't do that. This is New World Library who did this one. But the formatting is basically like the subtitles, the titles at the beginning of the pages. That's formatting, and that takes another month or so. Editing probably takes another month. And then there's the lovely process of recording the audiobook. And the audiobook really can't be done until everything else is done. The formatting must be done because the audiobook is based on the actual book. So there you go. So that would be my writing process when I am writing a book. And in between, I'm writing other things. Somebody asked me, because I had a birthday celebration with some friends, and the friend got me a candle, and he said it was either a candle or a journal. I don't know if you journal. And I was like, I'm a writer. Yeah, I journal. I actually keep like 5 different journals for different purposes. So in between my writing, I am still writing. I'm writing on a daily basis, so many things. So I'm always jotting down ideas for future books or maybe chapters in a book as well. So it's a constant process for me. I'm never really not writing. Although when I do finish a book, I definitely need to take about 3 to 4 months off before starting a new book process. So for this one, I had actually started writing Love Me Unconditionally a year ago. And I did that probably, I want to say September of 2024 is when I started writing the book. But at that time, the book was going to be something totally different. It was going to be a different focus for a different audience. And the rendition of the book I'm currently writing is a broader audience. So the subtitle being A Spiritual Guide to Self-Love. So the book, as I had it before when I started writing it in 2024, was more for women and more for dating or relationships. So there you go. Very different focus now. So I basically had to rewrite most of what I had written before. And that happens often too, is that I'll have an idea, I'll start writing a book like the 8 Limbs of Yoga for Modern Times. I even said this in a YouTube video back in 2016 or 2017. I had been writing this book since 2016. I think, yeah, it was about 2016. So I had actually been writing this book since 2016. It didn't get published till April of 2025. So that tells you how long this process can be. And since I had written a lot in 2016 and 2017 for the 8 Limbs of Yoga, I actually had to scrap a lot of it because my mindset had changed. My perspective had changed. So basically everything that I think I wrote a lot too. I probably wrote 20 to 30,000 words. For those of you that aren't familiar with word count for nonfiction, a nonfiction book is anywhere between 40,000 words and maybe 55,000 words. That's usually the range of a nonfiction work. So in 2016, 2017 for the 8 Limbs of Yoga, I'd written about 20 to 25,000 words already, which most of it I scrapped when I started rewriting it. So there you go. Hey, if you're here, say hello. If you have a question, please put a question in the chat box. I'm about to sign off if no one asks questions. I've addressed pretty good questions here that I've been asked in the past, and I wrote them down and I addressed them. So if you are interested, do watch this on replay. I will be here next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific, which is December 16th. And the reason I'm doing it 2 weeks in a row is because I'll be taking the rest of December off and then doing the live stream again in January. And that's it's Christmas weeks, New Year's, nobody's really going to be on here, right? As far as watching live streams. So I will be here again on December 16th. So do join me, put that in your calendar so you can join me and ask some questions, guys. Ask some questions. That would be amazing. So I want to thank you guys so much for joining me here today. Thank you for joining me on replay. And I'll see you guys. Oh, hello. Hi, Jeremy. So before I sign off, I will say hello to Jeremy. Hi, Jeremy. I found myself on this twin flame journey experience, but now it seems like it's failing. You are not failing. You're not getting a grade on your twin flame journey. Do you have a question for me, Jeremy? I do private readings. If you'll go to my website, michellefondinauthor.com. So www.michellefondinauthor.com. Just go to my website and you can book it under coaching sessions. So you can go ahead and book that. Yeah. And yes, I do private readings. So yeah, I mean, I know the twin flame journey can seem like totally crazy, out of this world, totally nuts. And you are not failing at anything. But yeah, reach out to me privately because it does sound like there's some complications in this connection for you there. So I want to thank you guys for joining me. Do join me next week, Tuesday, December 16th. And I will be here again for a chat with the author Q&A, where you can ask me twin flame questions, spiritual awakening questions based on the Wheel of Healing with Ayurveda, the chakra system, meditation, and the like. So I will see you guys real soon and have a wonderful evening. Bye.